All right, today we're going to do Throughput Basics 102. We're going to talk about labor and productivity. In Throughput Basics 101, we talked about productivity score for the business as a whole. We'll now take a look at just a portion of that, and that's the labor part. So, last time we talked about the productivity score as T dollars per day over operating expense today. And remember, the operating expense is your monthly bucket of bills. It includes all of your labor, all of your energy bills and payments that you make for insurance and everything else. The only thing it doesn't contain is the money that goes out to your suppliers. All right. And again, we need to fill the bucket to overflow to get profits in your business. And so a productivity score above 1 means you're producing profits. A productivity score below 1 means you didn't fill the bucket, you're not making any money, and that's not a good thing. So let's now take a look at breaking this into a little bit different perspective. So when businesses are not making money, they, by necessity, look at that one bucket of operating expenses as actually two buckets. The first bucket is you got to pay all your fixed expenses. You got to pay your mortgage payments, your light payments, and so on and so forth. And if there's anything you have flexibility on, it's your labor. And so when businesses get into prolonged periods of losses, they look at reducing labor because pretty much can't reduce the fixed expenses. All right. So what we want to do is look at a measure that's T dollars per day over labor dollars per day. And that measure we're going to call the productivity score or the labor productivity score. All right. So if you have a situation where you are not making money and you need to shrink the labor bucket, let's shrink that labor bucket. All right. Now it's nice and small and we can overflow into the profit bag and get your business back into profitability. We like to use a current state, future state thinking and model to do this analysis. And so it's the same bucket diagram, same bucket in fact. And we've set up a business here that's $500,000 in revenue. So it's a $6 million per year annual business. The TVE is 35%, which is roughly the industry average, leaving 65% or 325,000 T dollars. If your business's operating expense equals 325,000, then you're at break even. And this is the picture of your business. Nothing is overflowing, but good news, you're paying all your bills. And so one of the relationships that we're going to exploit here is the fact that 100% of your revenue is equal to what goes out to your suppliers, the 35% TVE, plus the operating expense, the money you spend to pay the bills, plus your net profit. And so 0% plus 65% plus 35% equals 100%. 500,000 equals 175 plus 325. That's the simple math behind this diagram. And the other piece now we're going to look at is the breakdown between labor and fixed costs. Typically, labor is somewhere around 60%. So to keep the math simple and the numbers nice and round, we'll have labor at 60%, which means we are spending $195,000 a month of your operating expense is labor. And when we look at labor, we're looking at everything that's associated with labor, we put in that number. All right. So our labor productivity would be 325,000, that's T dollars, divided by the 195,000, that's your labor dollars, and you would get your productivity index of 1.67. So what we know now is if you have a labor productivity of 1.67, you are not going to make any money if this were your revenue and ratios. All right. So let's look at the idea of reducing the labor bucket to make some money here. And Let's drive ourselves to the minimum net profit that we consider to be a viable business. That's 10%. And that would leave, if you have 500,000 in revenue, that would put us down to 50,000 in net profit. If this were the case, you would have to reduce your labor. That 50,000 would have to come from somewhere, right? It was 195,000. It's now 145,000. That's where the 50,000 net profit came out. Right? And so that would give us a labor productivity score of 2.24, necessary for this business to be profitable. The problem is, if this is a $6 million per business shop, and just a rough rule of thumb is that an employee is roughly at 200,000 in revenue in this industry. You can read my article about how to calculate that. Look it up on the web. At any rate, that would mean at 200,000 you have roughly 30 employees. 30 employees would be roughly 10 would need to be fired. And I don't know too many $6 million businesses that can run with just 20 employees. It's a tough situation to be in. So what's the alternative? Let's see if we can't grow our way out of this problem. If we go for a forced 10% net profit, we're going to force the numbers back through, which means we need to grow the business by $90,000, almost $91,000 to get ourselves a 10% net profit. So that leads to that revenue, which leads to this labor ratio, which means we would need to add 20 jobs per month if the average job is about $3,000 per job. That's one job per day, which would get your productivity number from, if you remember, 1.67 up to 1.97. All right. So a productivity score then roughly 2 is necessary for this business to make a 10% return on sales. Right. So what is a score of 2.0 mean? It means your team must be able to produce about $2 of T-dollar for every dollar you spend on them. Right? So, good rule of thumb, you can look at how many T-dollars you have, divide it by 2, and that's how many employees you can have, or how much money you can spend on employees, excuse me. So, how does knowing this help you grow your business while remaining profitable? I'll leave you to ponder that. If you would like to reach out and have questions, please feel free to do so. We're in the business of helping your business grow profitably. Have a great day.